the great H.G. Wells. He let a lot of the bag. He did mention, even in his novels, how he come into work and there's all this paperwork just on his desk with all these ideas. Telling you really how he did get it, because he was getting a lot of information from the different science departments, especially in government and universities, that were told to work with him to shape a new society. It's just astonishing that folk don't really get, even in fiction, where it's portraying the future is planned that way. It's predictive programming to an extent. And things to come, he shows you in one way of a war scenario. Like you're in today a COVID war, like Mr. Schwab said. It's a war-type scenario. Because out of the war, they have a completely different society. That's why they're going to drag it on for years. So they have that dragged on for years in a real war-type scenario in Wells' Things to Come. Out of it, you have the Brotherhood of the Air, a scientific Freemasonry of the air. They can keep secrets, work together, they're international. They and then their descendants are ruling the future. See them in the future in that movie form. The same actors that initially started off the Brotherhood of the Air, running a future society with them in the top. In the big, huge cathedral-type buildings, managing the whole societies with these discontented lot down below that had nothing to do except hobbies or bored stiff. The scientists kept changing society with more inventions and changing everything. The ones at the top started arguing, there's just too much change, we can't adapt quick enough. It's disruptive to our system or psychology and culture. That's what it's about too, so they touched on that. For those in the know at the top, they give a message for themselves, and that's the whole idea of Darwinism and eugenics. Adapt or die. The bottom, Bertrand Russell called it useless eaters. And if you're not essential, you're getting the point essential, then you're classed as a useless eater. As it's starting to, a little bell's gone off maybe once in a while. Useless eaters. It's all connected. This isn't happenstance, it's not coincidence, it's all connected, folks. They have given out these talks your whole life long. At world meetings about useless eaters and too many of you. It's always you, not them. It's always too many of you. All their helpers think they're going to get through as well. A lot of them will be useless as well once there's nobody left to order about down below. A lot of them will be useless as well, and that's where it all will end up eventually. That's some kind of something on your side to an extent. You may not get satisfaction in your lifetime, but you can be guaranteed that the ones who help it all happen, they get theirs eventually as well, because they won't need them either, you see. It's very Marxian in a sense. For those who don't understand the whole concept of Marxism, which really came into this idea of communism and of Trotskyism, and look, all these isms. Anything with ism is part of the same structure. And I really mean that too. The same kind of pyramid and techniques that he uses is isms. And you find that in Marxism, the way that Lenin and then Stalin promoted Marxism was that you would get to a stage and generation where they'd have vast changes as they slaughtered off all the previous intelligentsia and replaced them by themselves. And that's what happened in Russia and other communist countries. Then, of course, the next phase of it would be a kind of cultural revolution, which is more written about in the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where it becomes stagnant to an extent. Then those who take over become fat and comfortable, the new middle class, that lack nothing really. They're equivalent to the middle classes in other countries that are supposedly their enemies. They have all the same material goods at that level. Things become inefficient because the state runs it all. People who work for the state are guaranteed their income. They don't have to be good at it. Things decline, and therefore they get a cultural revolution going, where the students are indoctrinated to turn on those who are old, including their parents. In some cases, to slaughter them. The theory being that they're contaminated with some of the remnant ideas of the old system and from their parents. So you turn on the parents to show that you're more avant-garde than they are, and you're the next step of the phase of this religion of communism or Marxism. That's what you do, so you wipe them out, and then you're left with a radicalized group who generally stirs up trouble in the world and has to be put in its place by other nations. Then you start to realize, no, they couldn't take on the whole world by themselves. Then they get older and they get fat and lazy and quite happy and content as leaders. It starts going down. Of course, then you find out that underneath all of it, You've got another group who studied them, who promoted them, in fact. He even helped them come into being. The same group that gave you the American Revolution. And they studied that too. They called it the Great Experiments. One was the American Revolution for individual liberty and rights. You had to respect your rights. And if you didn't respect your rights and stand for them and make sure you had them, they'd be taken away from you. That was the big experiment. And if you abused your rights, then again, they'd be taken away from you, you see.